faith in other countries, whether it's training lawyers to fight for religious liberty, not just here in the United States, but around the globe, whether it is producing a daily, 5 days a week, 1 hour live television and radio broadcast heard on thousands of radio stations, on TV platforms, on social media platforms. Your support of the ACLJ enables us to do all of this. We want to encourage you to support the work of the ACLJ. And when you do that, you're supporting our production teams, our videos, whether it's that kind of production and other things that we are working on. The ACLJ is front and center on this. We're in a matching challenge campaign. Any amount you donate, we get a matching gift for. Go to ACLJ.org.
Keeping you informed and engaged, now more than ever. This is Sekulow. And now your host, Jay Sekulow.
Hey, everybody, we've got breaking news, and that is the governor of the state of New York, Andrew Cuomo, has resigned effective in 14 days. This comes after the report issued by the Attorney General of New York, Attorney General James, where she made allegations against Governor Cuomo with regard to unconsented. That's a lack of consent in inappropriate touching, and even further than that, and that resulted in a political reality for the governor. He maintained his innocence. He talked about it in the last couple of weeks, but this is what he said just about an hour, not even an hour ago. Take a listen.
I think that given the circumstances, the best way I can help now is if I step aside and let government get back to governing. And therefore, that's what I'll do. Because I work for you. And doing the right thing is doing the right thing for you.
The political reality of what happened to him, his political base eroded in the New York legislature, Andy, which was going to result in impeachment proceedings, which would have required him to step aside.
Yeah, that's exactly correct analysis, Jay. Look, Cuomo was an entrenched, corrupt, Democratic New York politician. He was supported by the Democratic Party. No matter what he did, was going to be supported and found to be appropriate. Now, suddenly, the report comes out. The Democrats start running for cover in the New York General Legislative Assembly, and they say, we don't want him anymore. He's no good. He's done these terrible things, not only with the COVID debacle and fiasco, but also in these sexual allegations. So his own Democrats are leaving him just like the Republicans left Nixon in the 70s. And once your own political base erodes, and your own political friends leave you and let you go, and you see the handwriting on the wall and you know that it's coming, you might as well quit. And so he takes out and says, I'm doing this for the good of the people. What he's doing is because he knows the reality of the politics, and he can count the votes just like we can count the votes. Well, and he didn't have them.
When you have a representative democracy, Harry, this is what happens. I mean,
I think
this
is
a good thing. I mean, and with no ill will to anybody here, this is how a representative democracy works, a constitutional republic.
I think you're precisely correct. So what we have in this particular case is a political surrender by a long defiant state executive. And this long defiant state executive can still count the votes. And he saw that he was lacking support. His support cratered. And so after attacking President Trump relentlessly, Cuomo's long-standing chickens have now come home to roost, and so I think he basically said he needed to go, and I think it's difficult to disagree with him.
All right, so we're going to be taking a break in a minute and 40 seconds. I want to encourage you, if you're watching right now, to share this feed with your friends. Joining us next, Rick Grinnell, former ambassador to Germany and director of national intelligence. We're going to get his take on this. We're going to give you more analysis. We're going to take the calls that are coming in. In fact, do we have time to take Tom's call? Yes, we can. Tom, go ahead. You're on the air.
Yeah, I'm a lifelong resident of Western New York.
Great.
And a longtime supporter of ACLJ.
Thank you.
And God bless you for all your work.
Thanks.
I guess I had a little insight that I wanted to comment
Quickly.
on Cuomo. His main downfall was he was on television every day. One day during this COVID, he said that you don't have God to thank for the decrease in COVID. You have yourselves to thank.
Yeah.
And I just think that's shades of the Titanic.
I remember that statement, Tom. I remember when he said it, and I said that is when you are asking for trouble. But again, you live in a constitutional republic, and the New York legislature, he didn't have the support. That's what happened. All right, Rick Grinnell's joining us. You want to share this feed with your friends. We're staying live on Facebook and our social media platforms. Call us at 1-800-684-3110, especially in New York, but elsewhere too. California looking at a recall for a very different reason of a governor. You could have an earthquake between New York and California in 6 weeks, September 14th. 1-800-684-3110. That's 800-684-3110. Support the work of the ACLJ at aclj.org. Talking about breaking news. Big day here, folks. 800-684-3110. Can we get Rick during the break here? If we can, let him know. I think it would work. Hey, Facebook and Periscope, we want you to share that, or Twitter and whatever other feeds you're on. I can't even list them all now. Share it with your friends. Rick Grinnell, we have? Great. Rick, this is obviously big news in New York with Governor Cuomo's resignation. Your initial reaction to this?
Look, I think a lot of people are surprised because he has really been the type that wanted to fight all along. He's been pushing back. And this just is the lesson that when the crowd speaks, when we push back, when we file legal briefs, when we fight, no matter what it looks like on the other side, no matter what they are saying, they feel the pressure. And I think this should encourage all of us to continue to fight when we see injustices, because many of us thought there was no way that he would resign. But in the face of the crowd and in the face of us pushing back, he resigned.
I didn't think he was, when he started making that speech today, Rick, I didn't think he was resigning. I said, stick with the plan we've got. Let's go and we'll deal with it. Harry, but it is really representative government here.
I think that is correct, and I think Rick's comments are right on, and we should never cease to fight for the truth. We should never cease to fight for justice. We should never cease to fight to expose incompetence and wrongdoing wherever it can be found, no matter how high the odds are against us.
All right, folks, we're coming back on air. If you're listening on our social media or our website, call us at 800-684-3110. Rick's going to be with us. We're going to get his reaction again for our audience there. Share this feed with your friends, everybody. 1-800-684-3110. That's 800-684-3110. We're going to be back with more in just 3 seconds. 800-684-3110. Here we go. All right, everybody, we've got breaking news. The governor of the state of New York is resigning effective in 14 days. Andrew Cuomo said that for the betterment of New York, he was going to resign. Joining us now is our senior advisor on international affairs and also national security, but also served as the director of national intelligence and ambassador to Germany, and is in California also. So it's going to be an interesting thing now. You got New York with a governor resigning, and you got a recall effort out in California. Rick, let's first go to New York. For our audience now that's listening on radio, we were talking to our Facebook audience. By the way, if you want to talk to us on air, 1-800-684-3110, and we'll take your phone calls if you're from New York or elsewhere, California too, 800-684-3110. You talk to our audience on our social media platforms, but let's talk again. Your initial reaction to this, Rick?
Look, I have two quick thoughts. One is this is a win for those of us who want to fight. When we push back against the politicians who clearly are abusing their office, or who have bad policies, we can win no matter what they say. Remember, Cuomo said he was never going to resign. But in the face of getting pushback, when we fight, we can win. That's the first thought. The second thing is, remember, this is how Washington works.
Yep.
Cuomo is not in trouble for all of the killings that happen in the nursing homes and the misinformation that he put out there, and the fact that he made money by pretending that he managed COVID in a positive way when he didn't. He's not in trouble for any of these deaths in the nursing homes. He's in trouble because he was caught in a sexual harassment allegation campaign. And so let's just remember how Washington works, that you don't always have to look at the exact issue when we're trying to get someone who is a bad player to remove them from office. We have to play the game And I think at ACLJ, we know how to play the game.
Yeah, it's interesting also, Rick. This is a governor that signed probably the most aggressive abortion law in the world. I'm not saying in the United States. I mean, in the world. It was basically abortion up to birth. And, and then he made that statement that the earlier caller reference where he said, don't thank God for these, the COVID numbers were coming down. Basically, thank him. I mean, and thank yourselves. I mean, this is the reality of the arrogance that you see here. But it's deeper than that. And we're taking your calls at 800-684-3110 about this. An interesting call coming in from Roberta, because you mentioned the nursing home situation, Rick. Roberta from Colorado's on line 2. Roberta, go ahead. You're on the air.
Yes, I just wanted to know if the charges against him will remain and if he can be convicted under those charges.
Okay, so the investigations are ongoing, Andy, now handed over from the state attorney general to the DA in Manhattan, but also to the DA in Westchester County and to the DA in Long Island. And I don't know what the status of the nursing home investigations are. That would normally be handled by I would think, the counties where it took place, where the deaths took place. Andy?
Yeah, well, that's the normal procedure. Is the district attorneys for each of the places where these events have taken place would come in and would look and see and make a determination factually whether there was enough evidence to pursue against this former governor now criminally. And as Harry mentioned earlier, Cuomo for years and years just completely tried to devastate President Trump and to say terrible things about him and to criticize him and to condemn him and to say that he didn't do this and didn't do that. And now he's getting his comeuppance. It all comes back. The world is a big circle and everything you do comes back to roost. And his chickens have now come back to roost with the district attorneys. And let's see if Cy Vance now has the courage. He took on President Trump. Let's see if he has the courage to take on some of these allegations that have been made against Governor Cuomo and whether or not he has the courage to prosecute him for these abhorrent sexual conduct that he has engaged in for years and years and years.
I want to say allegedly because he's not been proved guilty in a court of law, just to be clear here. Everybody's presumed, but that's in a court of law. In the court of public opinion and in court of politics, let me tell you what's happened. The Speaker of the New York State Assembly said he should resign. The New York State Assemblyman that was close to him resigned. The list just kept getting longer and longer. His senior aide also, Rick, resigned. So what happened was this is what we need to explain to everybody, the way the government works. Like you said, Rick, it's a representative constitutional republic. And in the states, it's similarly situated. And when your political base erodes because, as you said, people are pushing back, and that then affects the state legislatures, which controlled his ability to stay in office because they were talking about impeachment, that is all very serious.
Yeah, so let's be very clear. You're right, Jay. Governor Cuomo had a political problem and a legal problem. Today, by resigning, he solved his political problem. But his legal problems should continue. And I pray to God that we don't have a bunch of prosecutors who are so political that they ignore the law and the legal issues simply because the political problems are solved. They are two separate issues. They should be treated as separate issues. And the legal prosecution should never interfere with politics.
Yeah, my concern here, I think you're right. And I want to tie the situation. You got a situation in California. So New York, one of the largest economies of the world, of course, one of the largest economies in the United States. And then you got a recall effort going on in California, where you could be seeing the governor of California replaced, another gigantic economy, world-size economy. And this is happening simultaneously, like two earthquakes on different reasons. I don't want to, there's no allegations on Gavin Newsom that were the same type that were on with regard to Governor Cuomo. This was, as it relates to Governor Newsom, it's governance. And this was to Governor Cuomo, too, but I think the allegations against him on the unconsented touching is what sent this off. What does it look like in California right now, Rick? Because, I mean, this is in a matter of literally, he's resigning in 2 weeks, which means, in less than a month's time, you could have two governors of the two largest populated states, or I think top three, resigning or being taken out of office.
Yeah, look, Governor Newsom right now is faced with a September 14th recall. Unfortunately, because his party controls everything in the state, we're not going to the polls. It's all mail-in ballots. And the woman that he put in charge of the Secretary of State's office here in California, she's just announced that now we can do print at home ballots. So you can go on the website, print your ballot, and then send it in. I mean,
so are there any, Rick, has anybody brought any illegal I mean, there is no protection election integrity. I mean, Harry Hutchinson, our director of policy, almost fell out of his. Harry, go ahead, and I'll let you talk. But I want to see if anybody's doing anything about this. Go ahead.
Well, essentially, it's based on what Rick has said, the state of California is encouraging fraud. And certainly, you know, my 27-year-old child, let's say, located in Florida, could vote in California
by printing the form off
their computer. By printing the form off a computer, sending it in with a California address. This makes no sense. It's basically an invitation to fraud, and I think California has probably been a notably loose state in the past.
Rick, look, there's a lot of problems in the state of California. I need to say this about California. You know, if we look at our entire radio audience, you're some of our largest audiences in California. Some of our most generous donors are in California. So this is not an attack on you, obviously. It's an attack on the way your state's being run. But, Rick, has anybody brought any kind of legal challenge or thought about legal challenges on this? I know these rules have just come out like in the last 48 hours. What's the latest on that front?
So it just came out, and as everybody knows, I announced that I was not going to run for governor in this recall. And one of the reasons
which is bad for California. Good for us, bad for California, but good for us.
Thanks. What I really believe is that we've got to do some fundamental fixes. And so I have a 501c4 called Fix California. Yep. You can go to fixcalifornia.com. And we are looking at this challenge. Not only do we believe that we should go and have voter IDs, but we are suing every single county in the state of California to clean up their voter rolls. As part of this, we are looking at strategic lawsuits like the printing of ballots at home, like an emergency order that Newsom has in place still because of COVID to have mail-in ballots only elections. We think that goes too far. His emergency orders are still in place, and it's an outrage. And this is exactly what one-party rule looks like, and we've got to clean it up, and that's what we're trying to do at Fix California.
You know, Rick, as you know, we just filed a brief in California, got a lot of attention, in Georgia on this, Andy, on these same kind of issues. So we're primed on this, Rick, but talk to us when we're off air. But I will tell you, Andy, you look at this election integrity. We only got 40 seconds here. By the way, social media, ACLJ.org. We're staying live through the breaks. Radio, obviously, we have a commercial. Come back to it if you want to talk to us, 800-684-3110. But, Andy, looking at it, we just filed that brief on a lot of these same kind of issues.
We just did, and really, to me, for the Justice Department to come after the state of Georgia for a law that does nothing but ensure voter integrity and allow something like this to happen in California where you print your own ballot is an outrage to me. They ought to be treated equally.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk to Rick during the break here and our entire team. Obviously, if you're just joining us, Governor Cuomo resigns effective in 14 days. We're taking your calls, 800-684-3110. Your comments also on social media, 1-800-684-3110. Back with more in a moment. Okay, Facebook and other social media applications that you're watching right now, let me encourage you to share this feed with your friends. Rick, I want to digress for a minute here. You just spent time in Serbia and Albania. This has been something that's been of concern to you. Talk about why this is important, and then we're going to get right back to the Governor Cuomo matter.
Yeah, so I have a piece up on ACLJ.com. It's really important to go and look at this piece. I explain this opening that Donald Trump created and solving some of the Balkan issues. And you won't be surprised, but the Biden team has completely ignored these issues. They've given them up to the Europeans, and we're missing a historic opportunity. What we put in place really should be followed up. And I'll just finish by saying we all know that without American leadership on many of these issues, they just don't get solved. The problems don't get solved. You must have American leadership. And what the Biden team has decided is to give it up to Europe, certainly not putting America version.
Yeah, that is not the way to lead. That's leading from behind again, and that did not serve us well. The piece is up at aclj.org. We're going to also send it out by our social media applications. For those of you watching us right now, let me encourage you, share this feed with your friend. We're going to go right back in this discussion about New York and California. We're going to take the calls. Our phone lines are jamming up at 800-684-3110. But we've got, obviously, this is big news. I want to go back to California, Rick, for a moment, because we've got now the governor of New York resigning in 14 days. You're saying the way they've now kind of tilted the balloting and the voting is going to go to Newsom's benefit. It's not over yet, obviously.
We're not going to the polls. It's all going to be mail-in ballots, and they've decided to allow people to print their ballot at home. Now, the excuse is that we're in this COVID crisis and we can't go to the voting booth. But you look at Obama's 60th birthday.
Got our whole team here. Rick Rennell is with us, and Harry Hutchison and Andy Economou. We're talking about the breaking news, which is that the New York Governor, Andrew Cuomo, who I thought when he started the speech, Rick, was not going to resign. He's a tough guy. He's been difficult on our policy issues, horrible on the issue of abortion, had the mess with sending COVID patients into nursing homes. But then there was this devastating report that came out of the Attorney General's office with these allegations of unconsented touching. That's what it's called legally. And that puts now the lieutenant governor in place. I want to go to Ashley. She's from New York. If you want to talk to us, especially New York or California, 800-684-3110. Ashley, go ahead. You're on the air.
Thank you so much for taking my call. Born and raised in upstate New York, I want to be optimistic about this news, but I don't know what to expect from the lieutenant governor. What should I expect?
Well, I mean, I think right now this is what we hope for New York, and I think all of us would agree with this, a smooth transition of power, because your economy is one of the largest economies in the world. New York is the financial center of the world, and New York City is just starting to come back, not so well because of the recent variant of the COVID virus. So, what we want is a smooth transition. This doesn't mean, Rick, that the Republicans are now in charge. They're not. But it meant that the New York base couldn't take this anymore. That's what it really said.
And I also think it means that the reset gives an opportunity for collaboration, at least discussion. This new governor in 14 days in New York is not going to be in the position to just do whatever they want. They're going to have to reach out. The state needs healing. People are upset. The media are even focused on this. This is an opportunity for politicians to actually collaborate. And what that means for Republicans in New York is they now have a chance to sit at the table.
Yes, and I think that's a big issue. Now, I am concerned that whenever you have these transitions, Andy, things can fall through the cracks. And that's where you got to watch it. In California, as Rick just said, you had this whole change in the voting for this upcoming recall. I mean, there were some reports I was seeing just in the last week that Newsom's numbers had started falling significantly, and then all of a sudden they changed the voting. So in New York, you have to make sure nothing falls through the cracks here, Andy.
Well, that's exactly why we have prosecutors, and prosecutors who should not be motivated by political reasons. That's what concerns me in New York, because the whole machine is controlled by the Democrats. Are the prosecutors, now that the political aspect, as Ambassador Grinnell said, has been solved by his resignation, is the legal aspect going to be just put on the table? And are they going to say, oh, he's gone, let's forget what he did. There may have been criminal acts, but he's no longer the governor. Let's go on to other things. They wouldn't have said that if President Trump had been implicated. Are they going to say it with Cuomo? Are they going to have the legal courage now, the legal courage to look at the acts that he engaged in that led to his resignation?
Let's go ahead.
That's what's going to count.
Let's take Sharon, who's calling on line 1. Sharon, you're on the air.
Hi there. Thank you for all you do. My concern is, did he resign so that he could maybe run again? I don't trust him.
Well, I don't think there's a prohibition against him running again. I think there's a 2-term limit in New York consecutive. I don't think I'd have to check.
He served for 10 years already.
Yeah, that's right. You're right. He has already served for 10 years. So Oh, look, could he have a political resurgence? Harry, this New York. Of course he could.
Absolutely. And so if he could weather the legal storm going forward, who knows, he could perhaps make a comeback in 18 months or so. I think in New York, virtually anything is possible. And I think New Yorkers, perhaps different from other states, they may be willing to overlook his history.
Yeah, Rick, from your perspective here, looking at California and the change there, and I know you've got your C4 that's working on this, is there a chance that there is a recall of Newsom, or do you think it's just the number's not going to line up with this voting situation? I mean, there's always a chance.
There's a chance. I absolutely think there's a chance, and we need to encourage people to get out there. Remember, it's a 2-question ballot. One is, do you want to recall Gavin Newsom? And 2, if that question 1 gets 50% and he's gone, then who should replace him is the question, the second question.
And that's just whoever gets the most votes, right?
That is whoever gets the most votes. You could win with 10% if there's enough people splitting the vote in question 2. I think that there's an absolute chance, but we have to be able to have a fair shot. And what's frustrating to me is this one party controlling of the state, which has emergency powers in place, still claiming because of COVID, we can't go to the polls. So everything has to be done via mail. And now this new rule that you can print your ballot at home and then send it in without an ID attached. And so I firmly believe the recklessness and the fraud that is being encouraged, we've got to go back to having in-person voting, and you must show an ID. If you don't want the rule that you have to show your ID in order to vote, then I think it's suspect you're trying to cheat.
I think you're right. Going back to Governor Cuomo, this is what he said about his own administration. You talk about, and that's why Rick says Republicans have a chance to at least get a seat at the table. Take a listen, number 10.
We made New York State the progressive capital of the nation. No other state government accomplished more to help people. And that is what it's all about.
That is a very nice platitude, Harry. It's a nice platitude. The fact is they had the most aggressive abortion position of any place in the world. Not just in the United States, in the world.
And Governor Cuomo wants to ignore that. And he also wants to ignore the fact that the abortion industry in New York disproportionately has an adverse effect on African Americans and Latinos. So he claims to be a quote-unquote progressive. Well, that is what a progressive governor looks like.
All right, so let me go back to Rick, and then I got something quickly here, Fran, if we have time. Rick, what would California look like if Newsom is recalled? Well, and of course, with Cuomo also out in New York.
Newsom is recalled, he will be replaced by a Republican because the only Republicans are running on question 2. And that Republican would be alone in Sacramento with a supermajority in the Senate and a supermajority in the Assembly against the person. It's going to be a tough road, but certainly it would encourage a lot of conservatives to get involved. What we found at myfixcalifornia.com, 501c4, so far, we've found 1.3 million conservatives in California unregistered to vote.
Unregistered to vote. Okay, think about that for a moment.
That's an initial perusing of the data, 1.3 million. We know it will go up, but we're going after everyone.
Good job.
Conservatives getting them registered.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Rick. Andy, quickly here, we got 50 seconds left. What do you think the next move in New York is? Obviously, he tries to say, that's enough punishment, I'm out of office.
Yeah, well, he may succeed with a district attorney like Cyrus Vance and some of the others in the counties. He shouldn't. There should be an investigation. Grand juries should be convened. They should look at his criminal conduct, alleged in the Attorney General's report, and if he's guilty, then he ought to be prosecuted.
All right, folks, that does it for what a news day. Covered a lot of information. I thank our team for getting all that breaking information up. That was not easy, and they did a great job. Folks, again, share this feed with your friends so that they can see it later in the day. And again, Support the work of the ACLJ. ACLJ.org. Talk to you tomorrow.